and that's once again energy.bi.gov. We've suggested again putting the www ahead for whatever reason that seems to cause an issue with the linking of the website. However, it brings you directly in. Our website currently is a bit bare bones as it focuses primarily on the net energy billing program. We're in the process of expanding the Energy Office website to include a broader range of the programs and projects that the Energy Office has worked on in the past and is currently working on as well. But as I said, right now we really needed to primarily focus on a pathway to the permitting portal. So that's the majority of what the website currently entails. You can see here from the website, the top corner we have the net energy billing program as there are a couple links to it. So I'm gonna jump right towards that. What I wanted to show is that we also have, I know we had a lot of questions about the overall mechanics of the program itself, details relative to the new rate structure, relative to the permitting process, relative also to what the fees associated with the application and permitting process will be. So as you can see here, when we get to the net billing link, we have a couple dialog boxes here, that one being the net energy billing overview. And if you click the view program overview tile here, I won't do it now because it'll open up a PDF, but we have a vendor, a customer and vendor package that was developed with partnership between the Energy Office and the DOE and NREL to put together a very comprehensive breakdown of various aspects of the net billing program. We went from the history of why we saw the need for it, as well as how the justification for the different rate structures that we've incorporated, as well as what idea or a breakdown of what the fee structure will be like for various size systems as well. So in the view program overview tile here, you'll be able to download that PDF package. And I suggest having that not just from the installer community, not just for your own purposes, but also to share and distribute with prospective and prior customers as well, as it is a very comprehensive breakdown of the program. Additionally, below here on the same page, we have the USVI Solar Savings Calculator. This is another project that we worked on in partnership with the U.S. Department of Energy, as well as Lawrence Berkeley Labs, to develop a solar savings calculator that takes into account the specific parameters of the net billing program. We know that a lot of installers in the past have used either pretty straightforward for net metering applications. However, the varying rate structure for the net billing program demands that a different calculator to accurately anticipate what the savings potential could be under the new program. So if you click this link here, it actually takes you to an Excel spreadsheet where you're able to input user information specific to both the home load and system size, and inclusive of battery. We actually included battery integration as well, so we can actually calculate your savings, not just from the solar savings, but if you have a solar plus storage installation, we can also portray some values relative to what a given system size and battery size with an associated load profile, what that could mean relative to potential savings. So we did a lot of work on this because once again, we understood that with the new rate structure, there would be some concerns relative to how economical the new program would be, since it's a drastic shift from the net metering program. relative to the rate structure, but we also wanted to ensure that we could quantitatively demonstrate that the economics are still strong for these systems, and we're not trying to create a non-solar friendly environment, but we're trying to create a sustainable environment here in the territory. So feel free, as you said, as you're exploring the website, outside of the permitting portal, there's other resources here that we've included as well to ensure that the most of the program can be extracted for both from the installer standpoint as well as from the community standpoint as well. So feel free to share or friends just to get as much visibility on this site. We're trying to, these resources were developed for the community, and so we want to make sure that there's awareness around them as well. Right before we get into the actual portal, I did want to come over to the additional documents. I know this is a bit different from, certainly, I'm sure other, well, definitely different, a deviation from the original permitting portal, but since we're implementing or that all documentation associated with the application is also available online as well. And so in the additional documents section, we have a number of different links to documents that would need to be either signed physically or electronically and uploaded during the application process. So we included those in on this website for ease of access. So that way, as either as a community member or as an installer, as you're going through the application process, you're able to easily access the needed documentation and have it on the computer, and then be able to easily upload it to during the application process as well. So I'll actually open up these two. I'll see if, I'm not sure if there's actually, yep. Okay, so hopefully we're able to see the screen that I have up here now. This is actually the VI WAPA Interconnection Agreement. So this is actually one of the documents that would be submitted at the beginning of the application, and that's one of the reasons why we wanted to make sure that we created the resource so that you can download and have it filled and then ready to upload during the actual online application. So on here we have essentially the contract where either the customer themselves or the installer would be filling out this information and also reviewing the contract itself. And I'll just jump down to the final page, which has the signature pages as well for the agreement. What we intend to happen with these agreements, we are maintaining the records of maintaining these records as well, and that's why we want to have or we anticipate these documents being either electronically or physically signed and then uploaded during the application process. So you'll be able to, so we'll be able to keep a hard copy of these documents that will track through your application as well. So what I've done and what we suggest is if you have, as you save these, because you can save these documents directly from the web page, and then in a folder where you can then upload them easily. The ideal approach to making sure that we can kind of keep track and simplify the linking of these documents. And they're also broken down into the different or under 12 kW, which is going to be primarily residential, and then also the documentation that's going to be required for over 12 kW. And then there's some other documentation below here, which is these won't be at the initial application submission, but there are different stages throughout the application where a final inspection form, similar to how it was done before, will be requested. However, this can be done, that request can be submitted through the portal as well, and we provided the form we provided the form here on the website also. So like I said, we realize that with this transition to the online permitting portal, we want to be able to try to provide as much of the resources as possible to simplify the process, for anybody who's going to be interacting and using the system. So having these resources available right on our website has been helpful, and so thus far, I think the feedback has been positive relative to the availability of these resources. So that's going to be just the kind of brief overview of this. And if we have, I guess I'll take a break if there's any questions currently before we actually get into the permitting portal. Okay. Let's see.
I see Tom Bolt has his hand raised.
Yeah, I'm trying to. Lynette, are you able to unmute Tom? Or Tom, are you able to unmute yourself?
I unmute him already.
Okay, there you go. Can you hear me now?
I can, yes.
Okay. One of the things that, I mean, I'm a little, we've got engineers on here. I see things as a lawyer. And one of the things, I mean, you've got all these agreements, and a lot of them, they layer each other, but they're not interconnected. So if you on attachment 4, which is the interconnection study agreement, it does not, cite to the WAPA interconnection procedures. And there's all kind of interrelationship between those two. And I would think that we would need to reference the WAPA interconnection procedures in that interconnection study agreement. One of the things that I think is of concern to a number of applicants is you've got this open-ended, like it could be anything as far as this study. And it's almost like, we're looking at this thing like a utility that goes before the PSC, and you just got this open-ended thing. You got to pay Georgetown Consultant, whatever they say. I mean, and I don't think that's what we want. I mean, I think that I think people need to know what is the cost estimate this is going to cost. I mean, at one point they talk about up to $10,000, and that being half the fee. I mean, it's just very open-ended, and I think we need to drill down and make it a little bit more specific, because it's scary, I think, to a lot of small and large solar users.
So I think that relative to what we're just talking about with the interconnection study, and that pertains to the larger commercial systems, which I know your system falls into, Tom, or the system that you're working closely with. And I think I don't know if I don't believe WAPA's on the call currently, because that's, I mean, really from the interconnection, those pieces, and from the assessment study, that really falls into WAPA's understanding of their needs relative to being able to effectively assess and approve a project. I think what they kept it open-ended because we could be seeing systems from 20 kW upwards to 500 kW, and the reality is that there's certainly a higher level of detail in the assessment that's required for the larger system sizes. But there's certainly opportunities to fast track smaller and simpler projects. So I think they're trying to be broad because there is such a broad range of systems that can be presented.
Yeah, but couldn't they submit something, and then they would come back with a cost estimate? So it's not going to be $100,000 for this study.
Right. So you're asking for at least essentially some type of like fee schedule or potential estimate based off of the prospective system size.
Yes, but also I think these attachment 4 needs to reference the WAPA interconnection procedures because, I mean, the stuff like, I mean, you talk about in the interconnection procedures, you're going to have like dispute resolution. Well, if you're going to have some issue, you need to cite to that, and even if you just reference it, and it is incorporated and made a part hereof is the WAPA interconnection procedures. I mean, I think that you ought to have that so that, I mean, there's just a number of things that they reference each other and there's a disconnect.
I can give a brief explanation to why it's represented like that on the website. Part of the reason is this did come as one package. What we did was in trying to simplify for the user the documentation that they have to interact with was to break it down into smaller sections, so that way you're not having to, because the package that we had originally had literally all possible considerations, all possible system configurations, which could certainly be daunting to someone who's just looking for a small system to now have all this documentation associated with larger systems. So we really wanted to kind of simplify it for the end user. So that's why it's broken down like that. We can certainly include if all-encompassing package and have a link to the full package on the website as well, if that because that will represent what all those attachments are referencing. We were trying to simplify it for the end user so that way they're not having to be inundated with excessive content and kind of focusing the content relative to the project that they're interested in. But we can certainly have the full package from with all associated attachments referencing the full body of the content and have that as an added link on those additional documents as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Maya, you could go ahead and unmute yourself. She had a question.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. I'm Maya Matthew Sterling with Caribbean Solar Company. I also have some concerns about specifically the interconnection agreement. It just seems rather vague in that it doesn't address the specific, as Tom was saying, the specific fees that the customer will be charged, nor does it state any kind of compensation, that they'll be receiving a credit for 75% of the LEAC. And it also doesn't set a term in the agreement. I think it says, quote, until terminated, quote. So I'm wondering how we get customers to sign this agreement that doesn't really have any parameters in it. I mean, they're just signing a very general agreement.
Are you referencing
their project?
Are you referencing the interconnection study or the interconnection agreement?
The interconnection agreement that the customer signs.
Gotcha. Okay, so for the interconnection agreement, so for the terms for the interconnection agreement would be, you could find that in the vendor package that's on the website, because that would have we have the fee schedule for both the DPNR permitting as well as what the fee schedule would be, for example, for like the grid access charge for various system sizes that could be potentially presented. So that's where the fee schedule for the interconnection piece would be found. Relative to the terms, there is no, and we don't intend to have like closeout terms. I mean, part of this transition into a more sustainable program is looking at a structure in which, whereas the net metering program had these statutory limits, right, where once you reach a certain peak, then things, cut off. The goal was actually to be able to open up the market and not have all those constraints on how we proceed in the future of distributed generation deployments in the territory. So I can say that, there isn't a if it's vague from the term standpoint, I can assure you that there's no potential risk therein of cutting out access or availability. There's no part of the structure or part of this development that sought to limit access or only allow it for a short period of time and then cut. But if we're saying that it's not clear in the work in the contract, maybe that's something we could look at.
Yeah, I mean, I see in your packet where it sets out the fees and the compensation. But again, I think, and I'm not a lawyer, But in a legal contract that I'm signing with the authority, I would like my agreement with them spelled out, right? I mean, if I'm going to be the customer, and I think going to our customers, they're not going to be comfortable signing a contract unless that contract stipulates what they're signing up for.
Okay, so we can certainly look at that as a if we need to include some additional clarification there relative to the terms.
Thank you.
Morning, Kyle. It's Brian. Quick question on the term. Previously, I believe the PSC outlined it was presented that this was an 18-month program. This contract then is it the program will effectively cease in 18 months? Or is there some declarative language that will be included that will say that this is expected in perpetuity until replaced by a subsequent program? Is there any definition that we could get a little more guardrails on?
Understood. Yeah. So that's relative to the 18 months, and that was actually something that when this program was originally approved in October, we actually requested that 18 months start. And that's why we have that June 15th date as more of a more definitive line to ensure that we didn't lose time during the ramp up of the permitting portal and the program development. Relative to that, I mean, that 18-month is really a timeline that the working group that developed this program imposed on itself to make sure that we continue with and we fast track the development of this program into a structure that is finite, or sorry, to say more final, and more all inclusive of some of the parameters that we would have liked to incorporate on the front end of this design. So ultimately, the transition from the transitional program that we're in currently to any subsequent program, there will certainly be clear communication relative to how that transition would happen, as well as what the eligibility would or what the options relative to the existing customers that are in the program, what they would be able to do moving forward. So that certainly will be addressed once the subsequent program is implemented. But it's certainly not going to be we certainly understand what needed to happen here relative to putting a program in place, and so the full ability of considerations will be applied as we transition to any subsequent programs from here. And if clarification there is requested, we certainly would be happy to provide that.
Okay, I appreciate the intent. I'm just hoping that we might be able to get it in writing, but understood.
Okay.
Brian, would you like to ask Kyle your other question about the capacity study?
Is it my turn?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
This is Beach. My hand's raised. Can I say something?
Mm-hmm. Yes, Beach.
The first two speakers mentioned about the WAPA interconnect contract as it's described on the portal. I guess there's one described for under 12 kilowatts and one described for over 12 kilowatts. I looked at one of them under 12 kilowatts, I think, and I wondered if I needed a lawyer to interpret it for me. It would be great if there was something that, your average human could read and understand. The next thing is that interconnect contract mentions insurance and self-insurance, but doesn't define any parameters. There's plenty of people that don't have insurance. And what does self-insure mean? There's no definition there. There's no parameters there. I mean, is WAPA going to be requiring us to name WAPA as a additionally insured? I haven't heard of this one before. I don't know why it's really necessary, especially when you're installing UL approved equipment, especially when you're installing small systems, which I guess we've gone from a 10 kilowatt limit for homeowners and no disconnect switch up to a 12 kilowatt. I'm not quite sure. So that's one little question. Another one, hopefully you'll go over it before you're done, that solar savings calculator, I looked at that and I was totally baffled. I couldn't tell what to do with it. Finally, the precise definition of what is grid tied, and so in need of all of this versus non-grid tied. You don't have to just say right now, but that would be good information for all of us out here in the world of the public could use. Thanks.
Okay. So relative to the insurance consideration, I'd certainly have to defer to Waba's team relative to their expectations there. I can get back to you on that one. I do not have an answer for that relative to that consideration. To the solar savings calculator, I certainly appreciate the feedback. I mean, that's one of the things that we've certainly requested in the past as well. You know, is how user friendly this system is relative to being able to extract the information that we think that we know that it's capable of providing. So if you're saying that the from your standpoint that you weren't comfortable with being able to provide user input and generate results, that's certainly something that we'd be happy to look at. Maybe even have a dedicated, you know, maybe sit down and walk through with you on that and see if we can kind of get to a more you know, productive interaction with that calculator.
I have Tom Bolt.
Yeah.
The question.
Yeah, one of the things I was thinking is, I mean, you know, just so we can get this, you know, off the dime, I mean, would it be possible, you know, to provide a red line on some of these documents so that, you know, I don't know what's going to happen next week. I mean, is the Energy Office going to be working over the next 2 weeks or the not? I mean, could we have a committee, get Megan and some others and work on this, or they submit some stuff? I could, you know, put together a red line for your review so that we can get this thing moving and, you know, off the dime.
When you say get this thing moving, sorry, I'm just trying to get clarification on what you're talking about, Tom.
I think that there needs to be, I think there are amendments that need to be made to these documents. You know, as I said, I think they need to reference each other. I think there's some other things that others have brought out here today. I mean, there's a hole in the boat, and we need, before we roll the boat out in the water, I think we need to plug those holes. I mean, you know, I mean, what do you got to lose? If we
Time.
Well, no, I mean, I think that, you know, if you take it on, you guys have got a lot to do. I mean, but I mean, we could have Megan or you or somebody, you know, and we could work together and do a red line on these and you know, and come back, you know, to you and you say yes, no, yes, whatever, no.
Well, I mean, I'll say this. I mean, the contract, I know that the basis of these legal documents were prepared, you know, with the baseline of what was initially developed for the net metering program. So, you know, it's not, while there are certainly, there's certainly additions to the structure and basis of the, you know, of those legal documents essentially were based in the initial net metering documentation. So I guess my question, I guess more so to the installer community, specifically, assuming that you all have had experience with those with that documentation, with that process, is this truly such a deviation from that, or is it just that it's just kind of looking a little bit more granularly at it now that it's coming forward again? Man, I raise that to anybody who has had it.
Although, to answer your question, Tom, yes, we will be working.
Or open up that question a little bit broader. Yes. What have we had from a? Hold on, Megan. From the installer standpoint, has there been direct complaints from customers relative to uncomfortability relative to the documentation as it's been presented?
Yes.
Yeah, a bit. Just so them
Yes.
not completely understanding what they're signing, even after explaining it, via mail, email, or in person, they still don't fully kind of understand it. And it's kind of hard when it's not completely written out within the contract itself.
And I've talked to electrical engineers that say, it's even complicated to them, and they are electrical engineers. So I don't know. I mean, I just think that's, particularly for the small power people, that it does need. And I think under Virgin Islands law, you've got to have these things in plain language, and there's a number of requirements. We passed that years ago, but I think it could be simplified. But and I think we'd have to get Laura Lee or somebody, in her shop to help with this, because they're involved. But I think we could come in and look at it, get in, get out, and get it back to you, relatively fast.
Okay.
Kyle, can you hear me?
Gary, are you raising your hand?
I didn't see no raised hand.
Kyle, can you hear me?
We can hear
Yes.
you, bro.
Sorry. It just seems to me that the clause 15, the term shall become effective when executed by the customer in WAPA and shall continue into effect until terminated. The only term in there is a defining term for WAPA to disconnect within 60 days unless the system is off. Nobody wants to sign anything that has no structure. The term should be one of the more poignant line items in this contract. What does the customer get to expect as far as the conditions and the length of their net metering agreement as structured currently? I mean, maybe there's a clause that says that it can be ratified for future programs, but can't be discounted or reduced. And that's always been the fear.
Can I say something? Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. It's 10:45. Can we move on? Because we're not going to settle on any of those issues right now. Those people who have queries, they could email you what their queries are. And in the past, we've had contracts. Nobody ever read them. I've had at least 130 customers who signed them, turned them in. Nothing happens with them. That's just a document I see that you guys put in your file for whatever reason to satisfy yourselves. So whatever you have, red lines you want to draw, questions you have, please email and let's move on. Is that fair enough?
Appreciate the comment, Mr. Dwani. Yeah, I mean, I think for us, for our standpoint, we certainly want this to be a discussion where we can get some clarification and feedback from the various stakeholders. So it's certainly valuable for us to get a sense of where the comfortability threshold is. So
Right.
I don't discredit this process at all.
Not at all. You're not a decision.
However, I do understand in the interest of time, we certainly do have areas we want to cover.
Right. It will be best if they send emails because no decision is going to be made at this point. You're not changing contracts, and you're not going to be able to do anything talking about.
Thanks. Appreciate the comment, Gary. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. Okay. So as far as so we understand that there's some discussion relative to around the agreement standpoint. I think one of the areas where, and I said I touched on that first from the website perspective, because we wanted to ensure that there was we wanted to ensure that we had reviewed that from the landing page of the website as a kind of a general process flow for the actual application itself. So that being said, I'm gonna revert back to where we were on the actual portal itself. And it's just while I have people unmuted, we can still see my Google Chrome screen, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Great. Okay, so I know I kind of jumped that really quickly. Relative to the permitting portal, the link here, the tile here, for those who haven't been on the system as of yet, this tile here will actually direct you to the permitting portal, which I just opened on this phase. So it's a different web page entirely. It actually has it's dedicated for everything associated with the online permitting portal, which also provides opportunity for more than just applying for the permit, but also allowing for us to register for request, as well as a Credential Manager. So the Credential Manager is a little bit, certainly a different approach, because what we have in here is, it's essentially what we're using as our database for electricians, as well as PV installers here in the territory. I think in the past, and as you've seen, there's been with the application being a physical application, the electricians are identified on the application and generally with a stamp. What we've been transitioning to is fulfilling a database of licensed electricians in the territory, which is updated based off of their actual current or their active licensure here within the territory, and we're able to reference that as those electricians are selected through the application process. So it's also I know we've had some people interact with that relative to adding additional electricians that may or may not have been on already identified on our list, but then once we were able to confirm that they are active and licensed electricians in the territory, we're able to add them to our database as well. So yeah, so this is essentially the platform for the permitting portal. I think what we're most interested in here, and we'll just get right into it, is the permits and inspections. So we have here listed two of the permits that are currently templates are active and we're accepting applications for. We'll have a application for wind as well. We know that solar is essentially the technology of choice, but we're not discriminatory in any way relative to the technology that can be used as long as it's certified based off of established expectations. So we also have here, and I think we've talked about it a little bit, there is a tab here, I don't know if anybody's noticed, for estimating of fees, where we can actually go in and we can choose, you can choose some of the basic information to get essentially a estimate of what the permitting, this is just your permitting and application fees. So, you know, this, I won't go through this one here because it's a very simple drop down and interaction space, but as I said, this will, based off the system size, will give you a quick snapshot of what the application and permit fees for an installation in a territory would be. So this is something that you all can use. You can suggest for your customers or other people in the community, so they can kind of get a sense of what the upfront costs associated with assessing and permitting and processing and registering installations into the system will be. So now what we'll do is I'll actually take us through just a brief walkthrough application for the under 12K system. So
you want to do the collaborator license?
I think I'll have to because it'll ask me for it right now.
Okay.
Yeah. So the first step, if you haven't interacted with the system yet, you'll have to create a collaborator account. If you already have a collaborator account, obviously you'll be able to enter your email and password here. However, if you don't have, if you haven't interacted with the system, can be you can have multiple collaborator accounts. It's one person within, if they're for an installation company, don't have to have one individual. Contractor or a solar provider you've used for your installation.
You're breaking up, Kyle.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. Feel free to let me know if anything goes awry. Thank you. This is also not limited to just installers, also community members as well. So for example, if you are if you have a self-installed system, you would still create a collaborator account through this link. And if you're self-installed or you're applying for yourself, but then you're referencing the installation company as well as the electrician that supervised the work, this would also be the area where you would register your account. So I'll put together just a quick one here, just so we can kind of see before relative to what we are trying to accomplish. So you can, like I said, it does request additional contact information. We have the basic required fields are essentially your name and email. However, the other information is not required, but we certainly recommend as much contact information as possible, so that way we can always be able to reach out and reference in multiple ways. So we're really trying to. The system itself allows for us to communicate with those who interact with the system. So the more information that we have, more contact information we have, the more easily we'll be able to achieve that. So I'll save some of the additional information fields and just get directly to the next step. So once you get to the agencies, you'll notice if you search through, there's a number of different options here for the different states and cities that the software works with. Obviously, we're going to want the U.S. Virgin Islands. So in this top bar here, you'll be able to identify the energy office as where you want to the agency in which you want to collaborate with. Okay. So then all that requires is a brief review of, or just a check on your own email to be able to validate the account. Sorry, give me 1 second. Okay. All right. And so that access, that approval, that comes through once you are sent. It's into your own email. It's not the energy office or nobody else is validating you as a collaborator. So that's a self-validated action. So once you submit your information, you'll get the email within your own whatever email you registered the account with, and that's where you'll be able to approve your access to then begin collaborating. So once the actual MyGov portal, you're going to want to make a new request. The Virgin Islands Energy Office is going to be your location, and for any system, and I said we're going to start with the under 12 kW system here. This is where we're going to begin the actual application submission. I actually have a fake system that we'll be entering in today, but for the most part, it's the under 12K is certainly a more straightforward application process. We do have different, once it goes to the over 12K, we understand that there is certainly a much more information that's required, and we'll review some of those requirements today, and can hopefully get some feedback from from the WAPA team relative to the considerations of and maybe some of the specifics of those requests as well. So to begin with, and Megan, remind me here. So this is where we want to make our first changes at the project title.
That's correct.
Megan. Yep.
Yes, that's correct.
Cool. Sorry. So what we have here, so under project title, what we're recommending is that people provide the customer name and system size. So we have here for this one, we'll be putting in so yeah, so we want to make sure that the project title is changed to the name. That just allows for a quick reference, because if you don't change that, then we'll just have a database of a running sheet of this default name. So we want to make sure that we're at least being a little bit more specific to the project, and ideally the customer. So if whether this is a self-registered system or a installer registering it for a client, the client's name and system size would be the most ideal information to provide here. So for the location.
A quick question.
Yeah.
9 kilowatt system size. What is that? The size of the solar array or the size of the inverter's power?
Size of the solar array is what we're requesting there.
What if there is no solar array?
Then they wouldn't be applying through this portal.
They just have a battery and an inverter to have emergency power, just like a generator, right?
Right. So that would be, so that's not covered in this project portal.
Understood. Solar array size, system size. Got it.
Yeah. Okay. So for the location, so this is certainly a deviation from the past. What we're able to do and what we're able to utilize this portal for is we're actually able to map out the installation and our application locations throughout the territory as they're being submitted. And so what we request on from the location standpoint is to be able to utilize MapGeo to input an actual plot identification. So our system utilizes the MapGeo GIS network to identify locations for the installation. So, and it is a required field for us. So what we're hoping to achieve is that through, and I guess we're assuming that most people have interacted with MapGeo, and if not, hold on, I'll bring that up for us shortly here.
Can't we just use a plot number?
The plot number does not work.
I guess I'm confused.
Yes.
Now I have to go get another app.
Well, this is actually just a web link and this is actually provided by the Lieutenant Governor's office. This GIS system, and this is active for the entire territory. Unfortunately, the system is limited to the inputs that we have, and the input that we have for our plot for our plot is the property ID. So this would be from, if I can zoom in a little bit closer, and there's a unique property ID for every plot number in the Virgin Islands, and as you can see, as it breaks down. And once you've identified the location of the installation, whether it be your home or customer's home, the property ID number, which is this value here, is what would be needed to be included in the location ID on for the project.
Is the property ID on everybody's property tax paper?
I am not sure all the areas where it is, where it be available and accurate. We know with confidence that it's available and accurate on the map geo.
I can check on that and answer it in the chat.
Yeah, can you please raise your hands when you need to speak? Thanks.
MapGeo is the website just like
Okay.
Google Maps, and you could just enter the customer's name and it will pull up the house.
Yep. Even easier. Yeah. So I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day, all we want to do is make sure that the property ID number. So whether it's through the actual map or through, as you said, the search, both options, the property ID is just the accurate information that we need to be able to map the installation. Okay. All right. So given that, so here we essentially have. For the project description, this is similar to what was found on the DPNR application before. So we just want a brief description. So here we have a residential roof mount system with 30 300-watt panels. I mean, this is, as I said, we just want to get a general just to have as a description for the installation. We'll continue through. I mean, we do have a kind of predefined list, but I'll say that for the interest of time and really what matters here, we go to more the areas of actual interest. So from, we are requesting for a WAPA account number and a WAPA meter number. So part of the reason why this information is due to the need to verify the AMI connectivity of the meters. One of the considerations that we've taken into account for this program is we know that accurate billing is important, especially with the more complex rate structure that we have within the net billing program. And so now at the initial rollout, the customers that are registered, we can confirm that they are so that way we can be confident in the accuracy in which, or the accuracy and the ability to those particular customers. It's not going to be the fact that if you're not AMI, that you won't ever be able to be a part of the program. But what we don't want is to register people into the program isn't perfectly accurate, and as a result, end up with more issues and concerns relative to the accuracy in which their bills are being presented. So we include that as one of the initial screens, and that's why it's important that we have the meter number and on the WAPA on your WAPA bill, on the customer's WAPA bill. We also, actually, I will have to put in some information so that we could go on to the next screen. So give me 1 second. Sure. So yes, I'm just having to go through this because we won't be able to advance to the next screen without having this information inputted. So for the inverter type, we have both just options for either microinverter or central inverter to be selected. We do have Beach. I guess this was a question that you were asking earlier in regards to what the actual sorry.
Mike Bruno has a question. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
Yes, good morning. I just wanted to make a comment on the geomaps that there are a very large percentage of inaccuracies as far as property owners and site ID numbers that are on there. Because I use that program many times, and I've noticed, like for instance, the Cotton Valley Shores, every house is off by one name. So you think you're at one house doing work, but it's actually the neighbor's identification. What do we do if a situation becomes a problem with that?
Mike, I can answer that. We're really not using the MapGeo system to verify homeowners. We just thought that that would be the best all-inclusive way to get an idea of exactly where you're working. So that's the only thing we're using it for. So as long as you choose the right house, then everything else will be fine.
Okay, so just to follow up, if I click on a house, if it's the neighbor's information, I can be sure that the ID for the site is correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Yes, part of the need for us to be able to map it extends beyond just beyond knowing where systems are. The new host and capacity assessment procedure for not just systems today but systems in the future requires kind of understanding, the penetration of the distributed resources on various feeders throughout the territory. So being able to quickly identify areas of high concentration aids in the system planning side. And I think, Lynette, you mentioned that Ashley is on, and Ashley, if you're on from WAP, if you want to speak a little bit to the hosting capacity and how that visualization of and also understanding of installation penetration impacts the hosting capacity, feel free. Is Ashley still on, Lynette?
Hi, good morning, everyone. Yeah, I'm on. So the way that our system works is that we have all of our customers mapped down to the meter level. So the hosting capacity was done on a major feeder level, and then it goes all the way down to the pole-mounted transformer that services a customer. So we need the geographic location so that we can locate the customer, see which transformer they're being fed off of, then determine some cases.
Your voice is fading away. Ashley?
In some
Ashley, we're not able to hear you. Hello? Kyle?
Yep.
Are you there?
Yep. Can you hear me?
Yes. I can hear Ashley. She faded away. She's still unmuted. Ashley, we can't hear you.
And I was signing back in, and if
We still can't hear Ashley.
Can I ask a few questions while we find Ashley?
She's trying to log in on her cell phone. Please raise your hands when you need to have a question, please. Thank you. Ashley's going to try to sign on from her phone.
Okay.
Yeah. I
Uh,
think
does
Gary.
somebody had a question?
Yes, Gary, go ahead.
Hey, so there are a couple of questions on that application that I'm not understanding. The first one is battery output size. Is that the battery voltage or is that the battery amperage?
So we're actually for that question, we're looking at the and that actually may align more so with the inverter, that it could be coupled to the inverter as well. If we're looking at what the max output of the system through the inverter would be. So this is actually based on what the kW output of the battery would be.
Okay, I have Ashley back on. Ashley?
Yes, morning. I apologize for that. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, great. So the way that our system is mapped, we have a geographic system, which we have the customers mapped from the main feeder level down to the actual meter level. And we use that to perform system analyses. We did that same thing with the hosting capacity study, where we studied the capacity of each main feeder and then also down to the transformer that services a customer. We need the geographic location of each customer when they're applying, because we need to, one, see what the whole system capacity is on your specific feeder, and then see how it affects the pole-mounted transformer that services a customer. For instance, that transformer may have customers that already have net metering interconnected to them, and then we may need to upgrade that transformer to allow for additional net metering or net billing, as the new system is called. We also may need to do additional system upgrades. So the geographic location of each customer is very specific to our planning analysis, so that we can locate the customer, look at the analysis that's performed, and see if we need to do anything else to accommodate the customer that wants to interconnect their system.
Great. Thank you for that, Ashley. Really appreciate that.
I also have HB with a question.
Hi, Beach.
Thank you. Once again, the question, battery output size. Kilowatt capacity of a battery can be huge, but is an irrelevant number. The battery is only going to put out what the inverter is demanding from it, and the inverter is not going to put out more than the kilowatt capacity of the inverter, except now and then in very short length surges. So I still don't understand battery output size.
So that would be, so from that standpoint, like what, as I said, those two values could be one and the same, in the sense that if the inverter can only put out 8,000 watts, regardless of the battery size, that would be what the output size of this question is addressing, is what the max output from the battery source could be. And if that's constrained by the inverter, then that would be the input field, the response for that.
So it's really the inverter's output size. The battery energy storage capacity. So what are we going to call that? Are we going to try to make a computation, or are we just going to use the 20 or 24-hour amp hour rate of the battery bank?
Sorry, I missed the last part of that.
The battery energy storage capacity. I would recommend that we just use either the 20 or the 24-hour amp hour capacity of the battery, because trying to figure out how many kilowatt hours that amounts to involves a calculation where you've got to either use the battery's nominal voltage, or a lower voltage, or a higher voltage.
So if the recommendation would be to I would represent that value in the represent the energy storage capacity in the form as convenient to you as the applicant.
Right, something that could be confirmed with the battery specification sheet, which is amp hour capacity, either at the 20-hour rate or the 24, however they list it. Because there's all different capacities based on different lengths of discharge time.
Correct. So like I said, that field would be supplied and inputted as I said as convenient to the applicant, and any needed deeper understanding could be understood on our end. Okay. So we'll continue to move through the portion of the application. Like I said, if there is, for example, in this situation, we do have a battery included, we will check yes there. Battery model and manufacturer. This information here would be once again, this is where we, depending on the information inputted here, regardless of the battery storage capacity, the necessary information can be deduced. So that is totally sufficient in that capacity. Relative to the WAPA interconnection type, we have single phase or three phase. Depending on for the certified equipment, we're just looking for the UL certified equipment just to be included, the additional equipment, because we know there's some balance of system equipment that could potentially be a part of the system. So all certified equipment just to be included and listed here within this dialog box. Many of these are a combination of what was once presented in the DPNR applications and also what's being requested from the WAPA application as well. Instead of having multiple applications, we condensed and compiled the requests and organized them. So some of these response fields will seem similar to DPNR, some of them will seem similar to prior WAPA applications, and that is because it is a combination of both. And what we're able to do is, since everything is inputted digitally, we can extract whatever pertinent information is needed for the associated reviewers of the information at the needed times. So that's why we kind of do one big data draw, if you will, and on the back end, we're able to direct that pertinent information to the needed parties. So we have, we can go through some of these are more along the lines of the DPNR request. So we have everything from residential, our class of work, whether it's a new add, a repair, or alteration. We know there's some variety of work that may be happening out there. So this is encompassing of what those different configurations could possibly be. I won't go through all these aren't required, but I'll just review them as if there's anything that jumps out specifically. Like I said, these are generally the standard requests from the DPNR application, building permit application. Once again, this also falls in line. This is more specific to the PV request. This is sorry, for the DPNR application. So we have some of the specifics of the type of string configuration, the type of wire size, conductors, as well. And you'll see in the subsequent section, I mean, we will be uploading documents as well, but this is just where we're going to be quickly taking in this information to then be represented later on.
Kyle, a quick question from the chat. What is the nameplate value?
Is that where are we seeing this one?
I think it was before we got to the
So the nameplate value will be, generally speaking, the nameplate value will be the nameplate value of for example, of the inverter, would be the nameplate output size of the inverter. If it's specific to the if it's specific to the PV system, would be the nameplate value of the panel. So any specific request for the nameplate will be for the manufacturer's rated specifications. So Put this on. So I'll be. So as we get to
Jason has a question. Jason Baptiste, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
On the paper application, we were able to write down different amounts of string lengths. Here, it basically has one string length. If you have multiple string lengths, how would you indicate it on this application?
So that you would have an opportunity to include that on the EPR documents, the electronic plan documents. So there's on the next page, as we transition from here, there'll be an opportunity where you can upload the actual single line drawings of the installation, so that, which would be able to identify the specifics of the string length as well.
Okay, thanks.
Does that work? Okay.
We have Beach again with a question. Beach.
I have a question. It says, is the system self-excited with the potential to island? That's any battery-based emergency power system. WAPA goes off.
It is.
The inverter comes on and islands the house.
It is. Yes. So the battery request system, the providing the battery as earlier indicates that, but it could be yes, you're correct. It is. They are one and the same.
I mean, it's all of them, unless of course it's a standalone system with no AC input whatsoever.
So what we have at the bottom here, so where we have the upload, there's 3 upload documents, and these are all. So this refers back to what our earlier discussion relative to the interconnection contract and the interconnection and the signature pages. So as we mentioned before, as I said, I know we had some discussion around these documents earlier. However, this would be where ultimately those documents would be placed. So you're able to link, you're able to the recommendation before to save those files in a singular folder. Just a recommendation which allows you to easily select upload and identify the forms that need to be included in the application during this phase.
Are you not able to see my hand? Can you guys see my hand? Because I've been holding it up for a while. The last time
there
I was
is
able
a
to hold my hand was.
You're supposed to raise your hand on the computer, not virtually.
Oh, okay.
Obviously.
Not on the computer. I'm on the phone. So a button that says raise your hand.
Yes, there is a button.
Sorry. Yes. Go ahead, Gary.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Okay. So maybe you or maybe somebody else in the meeting. UF trip setting. Does anyone know what that is? Or UF time delay?
Yeah, so I'll revert that to Ashley or anybody from the WAPA team that would want to speak to the UF trip setting and UF time delay settings.
UF is under frequency. So for instance, if you experience an under frequency event, what's the time in which your system will trip or try to island itself if you have a battery?
Okay, I got you. So, so the trip setting, so if it's 60 hertz, let's say if WAPA goes down to 58 or 59 or whatever the inverter setting may be, the inverter is going to trip, and how long it will take to trip. That's the question. All right, I understand that. One last question. We're choosing the electrician from the drop-down list, but are we still submitting a document maybe later on in the application? that maybe the electrician's signature or something? I mean, what's the verification process of an electrician, if there is any?
Yeah, so that's something that we've been discussing with DPNR relative to being able to relative to supporting that. Amanda, is Amanda still on?
Yes.
I am.
Yeah. So yeah, so Amanda, I know we've had some discussions along the lines of how we want to we've been trying to transition away from requiring the physical stamp before we're able to certify the electrician via updated active license assessment. Just I guess the question would be more so like, and that's really what we've been planning to do. Maybe you could speak to that as well.
Correct. Just like how the system is going to be going into electronic system, DPNR as a whole, in January, building permits will be doing the same. And so most of these electronic requirements will need either a license, a current copy of a license, or if your seal is able to be sealed and uploaded to show that you're active, those would be accepted.
Yes, and so from so what we've been and for the confines of this process, like I said, we keep an active status on, or we keep a reoccurring assessment of the existing active statuses for the electricians within the database to ensure that if any of those electricians are selected, that they are in fact active and able to oversee the work as prescribed.
All right. And the other thing was it says solar installer right under the electrician, but it's not, does not have an asterisk. So I'm guessing it's not required field, but I couldn't choose a solar installer, but maybe because I am logging in as an installer. So if a customer was, because I sell equipment to homeowners, so if a homeowner went on there, I guess he would just be able to choose an installer, I'm guessing.
If necessary. So the solar installer, like I said, the reason why it's not required is because under the requirement isn't for whereas an electrician, a certified electrician must be associated with the project. A solar installer is not required to be associated with the project.
Right.
So that as an individual, you are able to install yourself, but however, the electrician there will have to be an electrician associated. So the solar install is voluntary. The electrician is required.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. So I know I kind of ran over some of the other fields, and we were able to address some of them. But the main thing was being able to upload the documents relative to the signature pages, and then we also include an option to a requirement to include the PV equipment data sheets as well. You'll see here in a second, we have actually a different field specifically for more of the technical information associated with the application, and we'll jump into that right now. So once everything is submitted, all asterisk fields have been completed, we're able to request the project. If we're able to get all these fields inputted.
Just do 123-15678.
Nope.
I'll have to change that. But for now, you can't have a dash in there. I think they just want a numeric number. But I'll change
There's
it so
no dash?
that's not. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Beach has a question. Go ahead, Beach.
Yes, under the old permit requirements, we were supposed to bring into your office the homeowner's deed. Is that not required anymore?
For building permit, it is required.
Well, we're talking about a net energy billing permit.
Anything that building permit has approved, yes, it's required.
Well, is there a place on this portal to upload this document, or do we have to bring it down to your office?
We can the deed link in here as well to make sure that that can be uploaded. Yep. Okay. Okay. So so for the final stage here is going to be the upload electronic plans. So what we're able to do, not only whereas you can upload the PDFs, which can just be reviewed and seen, you can also upload the electronic plans for both your site plans, electrical plans, as well as the equipment equipment data sheets as well. And the reason why this is a different upload is because on the back, the internal side of the system, these plans can be reviewed and annotated electronically, and then also returned to the customer, hoping to also expedite the application process. And if there are any modifications or changes that need to be done drawing, instead of having to wait to have those denied drawings returned to you, this can happen on a electronic transaction, which seeks to expedite the process as much as possible. So we're able to will be handled a little bit differently than what was uploaded before, because there's actually internal action on these sites. So what the process here is, we have to first upload your actual file, and it can be it's essentially any PDF. So I mean, I'm not actually going to put in file currently. I'm just going to put in just some random PDFs that I have available. And so what we're able to do here, as I said, these are just, don't mind the content. I just want to use a PDF so we can represent what needed. So uploading them here doesn't actually add them to the intended location. What needs to happen is once you go to site, on this corner, whatever pages are associated with your site plan, you're actually going to want to drag the button over to this main dialog box to identify that as one of the files that you would like to have associated with your site plan. The same is done for your electrical plans, as you have identify different plans for your electrical plans. Bringing the button over to the dialog box will begin the upload process for the electrical, as well as subsequently for the equipment. So
I have someone with a quick question. Operations.
Yep.
You could unmute yourself. Operations. That's the name I'm seeing on the chat.
So I am seeing a lot of emphasis on the electrical side, but still have yet to see any emphasis on the community's protection for how these systems are structurally fixed to dwellings. Is there going to be any oversight onto that, as we could prevent substantial loss, as in after Irma and Maria, with some oversight on the mechanical fastening and attachment to these dwellings?
I'll speak to that a little bit, and DPNR you can follow up as well. But yes, I mean, DPNR does inspect for both the electrical and structural integrity of the installations. And Amanda, if you want to give any additional comments on that, it's not to say that that is not part of this process.
Correct. We would be doing the inspections. It depends all on your system that you'll be supporting your systems to. Some of them might need additional permits. This is just for your interconnection net metering, but sometimes persons build structures. They put them on existing structures. They will need to have additional permits.
So just as a segue follow-up, through the process of interconnection, aside from with WAPA itself, there will be a structural permit required with some sort of structural documentation to mitigate wind, tear off, and of course anything else due to structural attachment.
Correct. That still doesn't change, correct.
Can I make a comment? Sorry, I don't have a hand.
Gary?
Okay, so in the past, you had to provide the data sheets for the racking systems, and the racking systems have to be pre-engineered racking systems that could be verified and have UL certification, and that was sufficient. So I guess if we add in the upload documents a set of the actual data sheet of the racking manufacturer or equipment that you would use, used to be sufficient. There was no additional permit requirement or anything in that effect. And I think that would probably still prevail if unless they want to change it. But I'm guessing that's how it would be handled.
Well, the question is though, the racking system might not necessarily be in question. Is what you're going to secure that racking system to that might have to need additional requirements. If you're attaching it to an existing roof, it needs to be checked. That needs an additional permit, is what I'm saying. So the racking system along with your solar system is not the issue. It's the mounting of it that needs additional permits. And especially with our new changes to our roofing systems that we've had and we've adopted since 2018.
I have Beach with a comment or a question.
Yes, I have two, especially because of the speaker who just spoke. One is I do my electrical plans drawings by hand. So what do? Just scan it and then put it in the document section?
Correct.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
You have to upload it, yes.
So
And the second,
you could use this same tool with, I mean, it's independent of what actual PDFs are there, or if it's I believe you could do a JPEG as well. As long as you bring them into this field, you're able to select, like I said, which ones are your site plans, which ones are your electrical plans, and as I said, we just had some discussion around the potential for the racking system specification as well.
right. The site plan, that's a new one to me. What is that all about?
That's
Shows
not
the location of the solar array on the property?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay,
so
and
yes.
the next comment that I had is I have never seen the roof attachments for a solar rack come loose from the thing they were attached to, in other words, the roof. But of course, we have had, well, the courthouse in Christiansted, the rack itself failed. But usually it's just the flying debris that kicks the panels loose, or they vibrate loose, even if they are properly torqued. I'm just that's if you put the thing on according to the manufacturer's instructions, hurricane's powerful force. We're always going to have damage.
And that's absolutely true, Beach, and this is Amanda. But in the Virgin Islands law, it requires you to have a permit for that installation. So even though you might not have experienced it or not seen it, it's the law.
Kyle,
Yes.
you could continue.
Okay. Well, so we're actually essentially at the from the actual submission walkthrough portion. That essentially covers it. Once you're able to get through this phase, takes the application process out of the directly out of you as an installer from an input point until requested to do for payment processing. The next page, once the plans have been, once your application has been submitted, this is essentially the walkthrough of all the different steps and sequences that occur internally to move the application through from start to finish. And what this also does, this view that you see here, actually allows you as the installer or the customer to view where your project is in real time throughout the process. So this is an added level of transparency and clarity to the installer to ensure that, or to the stakeholder, to ensure that you can also keep track of where the application is in the process. This is also for us to make sure that we're being able to expedite and move projects through as expeditiously as possible. So this helps us on our back end side as well to make sure that we're progressing the projects efficiently. So that essentially covers
Kyle, is
what
there a timeline expected for the under 12 kilowatt?
You said, is there a timeline expected for the under 12?
Yeah, just something you could give a customer as a generic, hey, here's what the expected timeline should be from start to finish.
Well, I'll say for now, one of the things that we do recognize that, especially as we're rolling into this new process, I expect that the learning curve on the front end, as we connect, you can see there are a lot of steps involved here and different players at every level. So, I mean, in an ideal world, we're certainly hoping to, under a month, be able to move these projects through. We certainly will have to see how that plays out in reality, but the intent is that we'd be under a month to be able to move under 12 kW system through.
Thank you.
And larger than 12 kW?
Unfortunately, that's going to be subject to a bit more variability, and so I won't want to speak to that without letting the team, especially from the assessment team, they would be the best to speak to that. And I think the variability there is going to be a little bit too high. But everything that we're doing here isn't with the intent of trying to bring these timelines down to as short as possible. Like I said, the overarching goal here is to implement a sustainable and solar friendly environment here in the territory, and renewable energy friendly environment here in the territory. The value of having an online system with this level of monitoring, it allows us to see where projects are getting stuck in the bottom, or where they're getting bottlenecked, throughout the process, and that allows us to then execute, corrective measures or efficiency improvements, Ultimately, we know that the technology, while is only as good as the one supporting it, and also the one using it as well. So we're cognizant of that, and we realize that there's the potential here. But in order to achieve the full potential of this platform, we're confident that there will be iterations, to our process flow to make sure that we can optimize it anyway. And our team is certainly committed to that. All the stakeholders involved in this working group have been committed to bringing this to the table, and also recognizing that we want to ensure that it provides as much value to the Virgin Islands community as possible. So we're going to be continuing to improve upon any standards that we even set forth here in the beginning.
I have Maya Matthews with a question.
Hi. So at the end of this process, the customer will receive a contract back from WAPA that is signed by someone in the authority, right?
Correct. Yes.
And they'll also receive some sort of, the property will get a label or receive some sort of signifier that it is in compliance with the net energy billing program.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay. So we wanted to, I know we're really kind of running up on the gun here. So we have the other area that we wanted to possibly shed some light into. Ashley, are you still on the line? Lynette, can you see if Ashley's still on the line?
1 second. No.
No, okay.
No, she's left.
Right. She left. Okay. So I
Clinton
wanted to. Who is?
Clinton.
Clinton is. Clinton, you still there?
Okay, I think he's fine.
See if we can get him on. I know the complexity that's associated with the over 12 kW, I think would be best supported from the WAPA side. If we're unable to, if we don't have anybody on from that side, I think we'll maybe look at doing maybe a separate discussion to address that area.
So if
Sorry, was there a question?
yes, if we have any changes to the documents and we redline it, should we send it to you?
Yes, I would send to myself and to Lynette Sierra as well. Okay. And if you need the emails, we'll share. Well, the email, Lynette's been sharing the emails for the team, so you should definitely have that. And if you need my email is just kyle.fleming@eo.vi.gov.
I've added mine to the chat group.
Okay. Okay.
And I'll add yours also.
All right. Okay. Okay. Well, that said, as I know we have like about 9 minutes left. Like I don't want to jump too deeply into the commercial side, because I think that would there'll be far more questions that would be more pertinent to the WAPA team to respond to, and I don't want to misspeak on their behalf. So we'll certainly be able to set up a discussion more specific to that side of the commercial application as well. So, and that, which probably is requiring of a deeper dive, and I think we can address some of the other questions relative to the interconnection study agreement and what the scope and cost associated with those could possibly be. So maybe we'll look at compiling for that discussion. Relative to today, though, as I said, this was really focused more on the under 12 kW. Are there any additional questions or discussion topics that we'd like to bring up in these last few minutes that we have here?
I just wanted to address the process of corrections. If there is an issue with your there's an issue with your application somewhere along the line, whoever is responsible for the review step will mark it as items required. You will get an email and there will be a correction item attached, or you'll be able to see a comment on what the issue was. So then you can log into the system and
Right.
and fix whatever the
Right.
issue is.
I mean, maybe,
I have
maybe what I'll
operations
do quickly.
first. He had a question.
Yep.
Operations Silverson.
Yeah. Yep. When's this thing go live? When are we expected to start entering projects through this process?
So we are, so as it stands right now, we are able and willing to accept applications. What we will do following this discussion is we'll look and see if there's any immediate changes we have to make, or any adjustments that need to be made. Because what happens is once you start an application, if we make any changes, those changes wouldn't be incorporated in the project that's already been submitted. So allow us to kind of, as we debrief this discussion today, identify any changes that need to be made. And once we are comfortable with the updates, we will send a message out to the group letting them know that applications can begin submitted. But we're expecting that'll happen, if not by the end of the day, by beginning of next week.
Are you expecting systems to be retroactively input through the system that have been, for lack of a better word, grid defector type systems since 2017 to go through this process? Or will be there another process to go through those systems?
No, those systems are also expected to go through this process as well. And we have one of the callouts input fields is whether or not the work has been already completed.
I have Beach.
Yes, I have I have one comment and a question regarding systems that were permitted, installed, and inspected previous to this net energy billing thing. We have certificates of compliance, completion, all that paperwork. So we have to fill out all the fields and just attach all the paperwork. All the fees have been paid, except, of course, for the one that I'm going to comment on now. I think that WAPA processing fee of $250 is very expensive, especially for systems under 12 kilowatts.
Okay.
I mean, they don't, what are they going to do? I mean, check to see if a transformer's overloaded, I suppose, is the only change to what they were doing before. Before they examined specifications to make sure that things were UL certified.
No, actually, there's a significant amount of additional effort on the processing side that is happening, and a major part of that is it goes into the hosting capacity analysis as well, as Ashley described earlier today. I mean, what we're looking to do and what the investments made on that end to be able to allow for the utility to not have to set any limits on the distributed resources, like statutory limits, like as they were set before. Being able to quantitatively assess each of these systems, the effort and resources required there. This also accounts for the work relative to reprogramming of once the systems move through the process. There's no that 250. There's no other fees associated with the WAPA application for under 12 kW. That accounts for the reprogram of those systems within the new billing structure as well. So it's top to down. That's everything it takes for WAPA to make sure that once your system is commissioned, you are able to receive the credit for your excess generation as prescribed in the program breakdown as well.
Well, I just think $250 as an upfront fee is very expensive, and then you got to pay the DPNR fees, and then WAPA's going to charge you $20, $35 a month forever, depending on the size of the system. I just think the 250 is a little high, especially for systems under 12 kilowatt. Perhaps it could be gauged to systems under 6 kilowatt is a little less. I mean, most systems, if you're trying to address your average human down here, they're definitely going to be under 12 kilowatts. 250 is a lot of money, in addition to everything else.
Under point taken. Thanks, Beach.
Is VI Energy open next week, or are you guys working from home?
We'll be open next week. On St. Croix, St. Thomas. St. Thomas may not be as readily available.
I have Gary with another question.
Yep.
Yeah.
Gary?
Hi. So I see on the portal there's a download site for Windows for the Is that for the applications, or can you do stuff offline and upload the whole thing or something?
No, that's so that way you can have. So what we worked through today was we went through the application process through the browser. I guess the browser I used was Google Chrome. There is a dedicated application or a desktop application, and I shouldn't say application. It's not a fillable application. It's a software app that allows you to essentially do everything, but on a dedicated desktop app as opposed to through a browser. So that's the only differentiation there.
Oh, okay. So then it would just connect.
Yeah, it would connect. You would still have to log into it. I think with that you can, I believe you can remain logged in for a longer period of time. The browser will allow you to, which will knock you off eventually.
Okay.
But the functionality is the same. It's just that you can have a dedicated app. I believe you can have the app on your phone as well. But I know but it's certainly designed to be a PC or Mac desktop app.
I apologize again. I don't have a hand to raise. Has there been is Clinton still on the line, and has there been anything addressed when it comes to homes of significant size that have multiple meters associated with the same account? Are those restrictions now lifted in some way that someone could power their house to multiple meters without having to connect all meters into one base of service?
Sorry, so you're talking about a individual home that has WAPA sub-meters or has their own internal sub-meters?
Has individual meters for apartments or guest suites, or the house was built in portions to where it has two separate meters for the same dwelling under WAPA's account?
Right, so any system that would be installed would be associated with a specific meter. So if you had 5 meters on there, even if it was under the same name, when you register this account or when you register the net billing program, you would have it specific to whichever meter you're associating that installation with.
What he can do is tie in like if it has 2 or 3 meters to a master meter, and then do the master meter as the net billing program.
That's a
I think
answer.
I get.
So let me just understand that. Does that mean that you would be able, if I had a dwelling with 4 WAPA meters at a meter base, be able to then request WAPA to provide a separate production type meter as the very first energy office program or WAPA program back in the day? They would then deduct credit or apply credit across the other 4 meters. Is that what you're saying?
No. All of them would have to be connected to the master meter, to the main meter. So you would have to eliminate your other 3, and you would only have 1 meter.
So we would literally have to condense the service to 1 master meter.
That's correct. in order for it to be all part of the same program.
Right. So yeah, because you have one meter per application is
Would they
essentially
be able to get a net metering? Would they be able, if those meters are not closely interconnectable due to logistics, line of sight, all sorts of other things that happen in the Caribbean, would they be allowed to obtain a second net metering agreement for additional meters?
I would certainly defer to the WAPA team on that. I know that there was definitely a restriction on that for the net metering program where you can only have one per site. That one, I don't think we've addressed that particular concern specifically as yes, I don't have an answer to that.
It has become a concern with some of the larger villas and properties in and around the St. Thomas and of course also in St. John and St. Croix.
Understood. Yeah, well, I'll request some clarification on that item.
You have any closing remarks?
Truly, I mean, I appreciate everybody taking the time. I know this has been a bit of a marathon of a discussion, but like I said, one of the things we wanted to make sure is that we're providing at least an understanding of what it is that we're trying to accomplish here. I think the recognition is clear that there's always going to be room for improvement and possible adjustments. Ultimately, we want this to work. We want this to work for the community. We want this to work for all stakeholders involved. And we understand that that's an evolutionary process.
Kyle, you're breaking up.
Oh. Yep.
You're breaking.
Any better?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, we've been continuing to make strides relative to, as I said, implementing some transformative change relative to the way it's done here in the territory, and hopefully, as well with the online portal, we continue to work to make it as user-friendly and as positive of an interaction from all stakeholders involved. So the feedback is valued for myself and for our team. We need that in order to make sure that we're putting together the best possible solution for the community. So discussions like this provide us with a lot of content to address. So thank you for the time.
Breaking up.
Okay. Yep. No. So will be any better? Oh well. We'll respond to as many questions as we can, and hopefully all of them. And also, we'll be providing an update once any adjustments to the portal that were identified today are made to let you all know when you can proceed forward with actually submitting applications. So. That being said, thank you, Megan, thank you, Lynette, thank you, DPNR and WAPA and everybody who's contributed to this process so far. I look forward to working with everyone as we continue to push forward in a stable and sustainable renewable energy and distributed generation structure here in the territory.
Thank you, Kyle.
Thank you.